Hi, Steve Stolberg here with monthly painting video number 86, made in Kuala Lumpur, February 2021. This month I'm doing a crossover ship with Velma Dinkley and Wonder Woman. It's not really that much of a stretch actually. They had a crossover where they met. This actually happened in Scooby-Doo Teams Up with Wonder Woman episode of the animated series, which this still is from. Furthermore, they have been both confirmed as canonically interested in the same sex. Velma is gay and Wonder Woman is bi, so all I did was add that little extra spark of romantic interest between them. Diana, as the much older woman, at least 5,000 years old, and larger and more athletic and super strong, naturally takes the lead. She's not exactly seducing Velma here, but more like helping her be less intimidated by her godly demi-goddessness. I'm going to show you some references I used here, and I start sketching. Now, I'm not sure I succeeded, but what I was going for in this sketch, in the pose, is striking a balance between raunchy and romantic, because it's got to be as raunchy as possible without going over the line for Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff, social media. But but it also has to have that. I'm just I guess I'm a romantic as well as a pervert. So I want it to be romantic as well. They have to be not in love, but they have to have passion. They have to have a spark. And I also this is a little bit tricky. I also wanted to be able to make it a little bit more raunchy later by just removing uh, layers of clothing, right? So I'm going to put a layer of, for instance, her skirt is going to be on its own separate layer. You'll see later. And three, it should have as much aesthetic appeal as possible. Obviously, I guess I also like aesthetic things. I like pretty things, beautiful things. So, for instance, we want to see Velma's curves. So, Wonder Woman can't be blocking the view, so to speak. So it's a bit tricky. It took me a while to decide on this particular pose here. And also, we want to see Diana's muscle tone. We want to see both of their faces as much as possible. Now, obviously, since they're exactly 180 degree opposing each other and looking into each other's eyes, you can't see both faces very well. I could have put both of them in profile, but I focused a little bit more on Velma's face. I just think she's cuter. And I also wanted to show off Wonder Woman's hair because it's very long and there's a good opportunity there for uh, designing beautiful patterns and shapes. So here I'm adding layers for each element, like Velma's skin, her clothes, Wonder Woman's skin, her clothes, both women's hair on the same layer, uh, because they are, not intersecting. So whenever something isn't intersecting with something else, it's I want to save layers, right? I've said that before. I always try to have as few layers as possible. Although in this case, there's going to be a lot of layers because I'm going to have lines later on. So this here is showing you the early stages of the first basic layers, but later on there will be, this is just the sketch lines. They're not going to be there at the end. I'm going to draw another whole new set of lines later. But first I wanted to shade it a bit. So I'm using the reference here to put some shading on, lighting and shading. And obviously I've locked the transparency and using that as a kind of a mask. There was a quick selection there, just to get a sharp edge in the butt crack there. And yeah, I use the fade command quite a lot. You'll see it many times. And there I just blurred that whole area. It's still not finished. Of course, it looks a bit crappy right now, but I'll get back to that later. Here I'm just doing some basic shading, the skirt, the hair. Big airbrush first. And let me check my notes. See, I lost my place. Starting to add shading. Yes, main lighting is coming from the right. And I'm going to add a rim light on the left later as well, you'll see, like I often do. And I think the rope is next. I'm just going to paint in the rope. Yeah, these are just some indications, like rough indications. Um, I believe in just doing things roughly first and later on refining it. Now, some people like to paint by numbers and start in one corner and just finish everything one area by one area. But um, I think most artists work this way. They work very roughly at first and then gradually refine it. So yeah, rough strokes first, big strokes first, smaller and smaller as you go. The sketch is on its own layer up top there, as you can see. Sketch hair, Wonder Woman clothes, skirt, which is obviously Velma's skirt. Wonder Woman skin, which is her skin. Glasses. Blue is just the blue of the glasses because I wasn't sure if I wanted it there or not. So I'm leaving it on its own layer all the way to the end. And orange just means that's her clothes because Velma's clothes are just orange, apart from the skirt. And Velma's skin. And then the bottom layer, of course, is just it's a table. There's a chair there as well. I didn't include the chair in the end. I removed the chair. But here you see the rim light that I mentioned earlier. A little bit more shading there. Still very rough. Very rough. But gradually getting more and more refined. Yeah, I painted the chair there, but I removed it later. Now here comes the rope, finally. Just very rough at first. I mean, it was very rough. It wasn't even parallel. You know, the shape wasn't even parallel. I'm gonna refine that later. As I keep saying about everything. The glasses here are already fairly refined. They're a bit trickier, so you know the rope is not that important. Rope is easy. You can make the rope. You know, you can clean up the rope very quickly and easily, but the glasses require a little bit more mental energy to make sure that you get the perspective right and so on. So here I'm just painting the faces. I'm gonna do both faces at the same time, starting with starting on the right here, using some reference which I showed you in the beginning. I already painted her ear a little bit there. You can see the ear went a bit pinker. And of course, they have different skin color because Wonder Woman is from Greece, you know, the area around the Mediterranean. And uh, Velma is almost a redhead. She's not, maybe she is a redhead. I'm not sure about the colors that they use. And as such, she probably has very pale skin. She has freckles too. So I'm pretty sure she is one of those very pale-skinned redheads that burn easily in the sun, you know. So, I mean, I burn easily in the sun, but I think redheads do even more. Anyway, so I wanted to have the skin tones contrasting. I mean, you know, I want variation, you know. So I think it looks cool. Maybe she turned out a little bit too dark, Wonder Woman, but I, who knows? You know, this is she's darker than in the animated series, but this could very well be what she looks like. I don't know. It's my take. It's my take on Wonder Woman anyway. Also, her earring doesn't look exactly like that. Uh, but yeah, right at the end there, you saw me sort of adjusting Velma's face, which was quite awful in the beginning. But you know that this is the middle stage here. The early stages to the middle stages is easy to change things by just grabbing them and moving them around. You know, here I'm just masking for airbrush and other brushes, but you know this kind of masking right here is to get that shade into the armpit area there. And there's no excuse not to mask for airbrush because it always makes the airbrush look better and it's very easy, quick and easy to do. You're going to see me doing that again on the breasts and many areas around here. Yep, there's a mask and a little bit of airbrush there. I had some. I always have some comments about the airbrush. Let me find my notes here. Yeah, with the selection. So yeah, it's a quick and easy and clean way to get nice shading to use a large airbrush and selections. But remember, use a small. If you use a small size airbrush at high strength without a selection, it's gonna look bad usually. So when I do that, when I use a smaller airbrush without a selection, I'm always very careful to keep it light, to keep it subtle. The best way to do that also is to use that fade command that I mentioned earlier, like you saw right there. It's under Edit, Opacity. You're fading the opacity of your last stroke. You see here I'm doing it several times in a row. And I keep mentioning it every video I make. I mention it because it's such a useful tool to get subtle brush strokes down. So you don't have to worry about being subtle. You with the initial stroke, you just worry about the placement and the color. And then after that, in a completely separate stage, you worry about how subtle is it. It helps me a lot anyway to work that way. Now I'm working on her hair, but it's kind of crappy, so I'm going to get some reference. You'll see in a moment. I think first, I'm not sure. First, I'm going to work on Wonder Woman's hair. Yes. And then I'm going to come back to Velma's hair with some new reference. Yeah, here's the reference for Wonder Woman. So I'm just sort of just general reference, I'm not going to copy that because I have a larger area to cover, and so I'm going to have to improvise a little bit. But first, it needed to go a bit darker. And this whole area is going to change. This really doesn't look very good right now. It's very rough, and I added a lot of complexity to this area later on. When I add the lines, when I add the outlines, the ink lines, I'm basically gonna repaint this whole area because the ink lines come down, and then I I do them as I feel it. I'm not following this kind of crappy rough painting here. Um, I'm using it as a guide, and then I'm just trying to feel my way. So the ink lines are gonna be fairly different from this, right? They're gonna move. They're gonna be all over the place in different places than this. And then I'm going to reselect based on the new lines. I'm going to reselect this area and basically repaint the edges. I'm not going to repaint the whole hair. The main mass of the hair will stay the same. I'm quite satisfied with how this hair is turning out. So I kept that the same, but you'll see me making it lighter later. And that was the reference from the movie, from the James Gunn movie. I think the first one doesn't matter. Anyway, so I'm using that as a reference to change her hair, and I also made her hair a little bit lighter as well at the end. I also made the glasses lighter at the end because, as they are now, you wouldn't see the contour lines if I when I put the lines around the glasses, you didn't see them. So I made the color of the glasses lighter, the black part of the glasses lighter. And so this is looking a little bit too painterly, like too blotchy and streaky. So I'm going to be using my famous smudge brush. I think I think I stopped the tape there and used it already on her hair. It's just a matter of smudging along the direction of the hair. Very easy to do, very easy and intuitive. Just make sure you have a smudge brush that is slightly textured. I mean, mine is nothing special. Just any kind of slight textured brush, not just a round one or a square one. just break up that brush a little bit with some random organic pattern, and then you just use it. You just set it so that it's pressure sensitive, and doesn't, maybe not like finger painting, maybe not pull it. It's not pulling too strongly, like 50-60% maybe, so that you can just use it to smudge, not finger paint, right? Which means that you can then use it to get rid of edges. You can use it as to blur edges, but you won't be blurring it in all directions at the same time. You'll be blurring it directionally in whichever way you're pulling your brush. And here you see I'm doing the ink lines that I mentioned earlier. These are all going to get colorized later. Mostly red, warm, orangey. For her orange clothing, obviously, I'm going to make the lines dark red. For skin also, a bit sort of dark red, brown, reddish, brownish. They're still going to be fairly dark. I could have gone really bright colors for the lines, but I don't want to lose them. When you zoom out, you lose the lines completely, in my case. So I see other people do quite a nice job with that. It's a nice thing, but the lines will have to be much thicker in that case. And I guess I could try that next time, but I didn't do it this time. So I'm not going to show all the lines that I drew, but because you can see it's quite tedious. This is already speeded up 10 times. It takes a long time, but it's worth it, I think. Because it saves a lot. It actually saves a lot of time, because if you don't have lines, you're going to have to paint much more. It's going to take like 5 times longer to actually paint the painting so that it doesn't need the outlines. If you get the PSD for this, you can see, you can turn off the line layer, and you'll see a painting that looks okay from a distance, but if you look closer, it's going to look like crap, because it doesn't have that edge, those edge treatments that you need, and they take a long time to do. The subtle edge treatments everywhere that you need to create if you don't have this line drawing. And each line is just a single stroke, but it'll be several strokes if you're trying to paint this without lines, So even if it takes a long time, it's a time-saving device. And here you see I'm just sort of making it up as I go along. You see here that I'm not following the previous thing that I have painted. The rough painting that I made is just that. It's a rough sketch. And so now I'm just sort of trying to clarify, trying to solidify the design, trying to keep it interesting and cool. A little bit Alphonse Mucha there, Um, and I think it's working. I mean, here you see, I actually think it's working. So now I thought it worked so nicely that I wanted to show it off a little bit more. So I'm lightening the hair a little bit to show those outlines a bit more. And here you see everything is black right now, but now I'm going to add glow to all the outlines are black, but I'm going to add glow to the rope, and then I'm going to add sort of an orange to the lines of the rope. And that's what after that, I'm not going to show it, but after that I did that to all the lines one by one. The skirt, the outlines for the skirt, obviously I made them dark red. Most of the lines turned out in a warm color. See here, orange on the line there with the glow. And yeah, you see, I've refined this area a little bit more. I've refined everything. Uh, I haven't showed you every step of the way, but they're not actually steps. They're just the same thing that I showed you I was doing, gradually refining. Like you can still see some brush strokes here. You still see these brush strokes here. So I haven't refined everything completely to perfection. I like to just keep it a little bit loose here and there. But it does bother me if there's some color spilling outside of the lines. I hate that. It's spilling a little bit right here, and I didn't fix that. I'm only seeing that now, so that's one of those things that I'm a bit Asperger's. I like to not have that happen, but it's very difficult to have achieve perfection in something like this. I'm polishing the metal here. Pardon the pun. The metal is polished, and here I am just, that's it, that's finished. And I'm going to switch it off now because I'm going to tell you about there are some layers here. So uh, there are several layers you can play with by switching them on and off if you get the PSD. And if you got this video, you should have the PSD. Let me know if you didn't. For instance, you can there are text bubbles here, and there's text in the bubbles, which you can see, and there is there's blue for her glasses. You can switch that off if you like, but I kind of like the blue, even though it's unrealistic, but it's in the anime and it adds a nice touch of color to the whole thing, brings attention to her face, and sets off all the orange. Yeah, that's it. The gradation shadow. I added a dark shadow as if there's like a large umbrella over them or something, casting shadow on their upper parts. Now, like, as I mentioned, you can switch the skirt off. But it's a little bit tricky because you have the skirt and then you have the lines for the skirt. They have to be on separate layers because I didn't want to smush down the ink lines down into the color layer. So those are two separate lines. There's also then you have to switch on the panty lines because there's a line layer for the panties. And there's also there's a lot of layers. I'm sorry, but I named them all, so it should be fairly easy to see. And you can experiment. You can turn them on and off as you like. You could even try turning on off the panty layer as well, but that doesn't work perfectly. She's not uh, fully nude. She doesn't look perfect because I wasn't planning for that from the start, so I didn't bother making a special layer just to and also her hand position isn't quite right, etc., etc. Excuses, but I know, but I wasn't planning for that from the beginning. I just added that right at the end as an afterthought. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for your support and see you next month.